So let's get back to case reading. Please excuse the background because our neighbor is doing a karaoke. Okay, so this is the current case that I've been reading, and I've left it unfinished because I was busy this week with work. So here is a case of Singapore Airlines versus Andy Fernandez, who is a soprano singer. He was supposed to board a flight from Frankfurt. Was it Frankfurt? From Germany to Manila, and Manila to Singapore. Was it correct? Oh, I forgot. What? Anyway, he was to left Germany here, Frankfurt, Germany, bound for Singapore with onward connections from Singapore to Manila because she was supposed to get her items and some documents, and after which she would travel to Malaysia, or she was to invited to sing before the King and Queen of Malaysia. But because there was a typhoon, I think, or the weather was inclement, and she cannot travel from Singapore, her connecting flight, to Manila because she was late. The plane was late. And so she struggled to, I think, from what I've read thus far, she struggled to get her items in Manila, and so she had to stay in a friend's house, had her mother met her and incurred expenses for it. So let's see what we've gone. So in here you can see I've highlighted several facts, and then RTC was for Fernandez, the soprano singer. So the reason why she sued the Singapore Airlines was because she was so traumatized and so full of anxiety. So here you can see personal things needed for the performance that caused them to incur an expense of about 50,000. So she sued the airlines because she felt that her performance before the royal family was below par, of the rude and unkind treatment of the staff, that she was engulfed with fear, anxiety, humiliation, and ultimately she suffered mental fatigue and skin rashes that she had to seek medical attention in Manila for acute urticaria. So it's like, if I'm not mistaken, acute urticaria is really a visible skin condition, and it raises bumps on your skin. So being her in an entertainment industry as a soprano singer, it would not look good on her. So upon filing with the RTC rendered a decision for Fernandez. Okay, so when I highlight, I use the red highlighter or the red underline. So this is available in preview, and at the start of the case, I open the case and go straight to the dispositive portion. Wherefore, the petition is denied, meaning Singapore Airlines, having filed the petition, their petition was denied by the Supreme Court. So I highlight Andion as the winner. So whenever I am to refresh my memory for this type of case, I am reminded that in this case, Andion won the case. And I do not make a separate digest. It takes so much time. Before, I would make a digest by hand, write it in my tablet and because it makes you remember easily, right? But I've I do not do it now because it takes so much of my time, and I am a working student, by the way, so I cannot do the things that full-time student do. So let's read. So I'm now in the, if you can see that the page 1 is full of highlight. That's the facts. Makes me remember more. And I use these notes here, this one. So it's my trigger that this case is about a soprano singer who was left with her connecting flight in Singapore because her SG flight or Germany flight was delayed. Then I highlighted on the second page. Then here, like I usually do, I put in here because sometimes professor would ask, "What's the artist's decision?" or Fernandez. So I type in that, and then that's the third here. So the highlight here is yellow because it is a it is a prompt for me that we now see the decision of the Supreme Court. So it's a bit different in the first or the above highlights. So I haven't read the case in full because I got so busy. Here, you can see, since the petitioner did not transport the respondent as covenanted by it on said terms, the petitioner clearly breached its contract of carriage with the respondent. So here you can see that this is now the point of view of the Supreme Court. So I highlight these because it shows us the doctrine, and it's easy for you to remember when you have it in your exam and you remember that highlighted portion. However, if the court would highlight or cited certain cases outside of these facts or outside of this case, I usually would just go to an underline here. So let's read again. Let's read with me. So this will be a bit boring if you like. Here we highlight again the reasoning of the Supreme Court why it found for Fernandez. This was an adoption of the findings of the trial court. Yep. Here, it says here, this is a finding that is generally binding upon the court, which we find no reason to disturb. It's a good case. This is for a subject in my commercial law, but it somehow appears sometimes in quasi-delict or torts subject. So I've read the case, and I've highlighted the important portions. Now I go to the first page of the case. So this is my trigger. I put that here. And now let's make a simple digest. I put here Soprano Fernandez to travel from Germany to Manila. Was it Manila? Bound for Singapore with onward connections from Singapore. So from Germany, SG, then SG to Manila. So connecting flight. Yep. So the cause of delay, inclement weather, delayed for 2 hours. I think that was 2 hours. In 2 hours late. Yep. Delayed for 2 hours. Left by their Manila. By SG to Manila flight. So now here are the important facts. Respondent approached the counter. There was no more flight to Manila for that day. Yep. Okay, so informed counter she needed to fly on that day to Manila. Informed counter said counter no flight to Manila on that day anymore. So if you see my if you've noticed, my notes are not really in full sentences and sometimes just phrases and bits and pieces of the facts. So it helps me remember things, and also it helps me with recitations. Right. Here, let's also mention that let's mention this because you want to lay the foundation that the airline was not caring or was not really empathetic to her needs. Pick her up at the airport. Respond never made to Manila and forced a direct flight from Singapore to Malaysia. Okay. So inform her she needed to fly on that day to Manila. Inform counter she needed to fly on that day to Manila. Counter said there's no flight to Manila on that day anymore. Requested to use let's see. Option. So she was given an option to travel from Hong Kong HK to Manila, but she needed to pay, right? But she needed to pay. No money. So I just put in here no money. And then she called her mother and able to arrange her night accommodation with a friend's house. Okay. As a result of that, she alleges that the employees were rude and let's mention also that mother had to travel to Malaysia for a performance with Malaysia's royal family. Okay. Mother had to travel to Malaysia and incurred additional expenses. Yep. Employees were rude. What else is there? The result of which she performance was below par, suffered humiliation, and what was had to seek medical help due to let's just see, so that I mean what was the medical condition? Acute urticaria. Okay. Contention. Let's see. Airlines contention. Let's just is whether or not Singapore Airlines is liable. Whether or not, so the core issue is whether or not the inclement weather is a fortuitous event, because the fortuitous and whether or not it's liable for breach of carriage. So this is now our core issue. We look into the contention of SG Airline. So you can recite this early here and go straight to the issue afterwards. Delay was due to a fortuitous. Am I making this spelling correct? Delay was due to a fortuitous event weather causing delay in flight. So it was said by the Singapore Airlines that in Germany there was a bad weather, and so they were not able to land because of the traffic, and it caused them to incur delay. Passenger was, what's up? Here is just the contention. So they said that there's a snowball effect here. The plane could not take off from the airport as the place was shrouded with fog. 2 hours behind schedule. Snowball effect. So you can highlight this one and you can mention it here at the start, so it's easier to remember. So this was their contention. They had to reroute. Supposedly they are to pass through Middle East. No. The delay was even compounded when the plane could not travel the normal route. And which was through the Middle East to the Raging Gulf at the time. It had to pass through the restricted Russian airspace. So this is another alibi, I would say. So they had to pass through Russian airspace, which was more congested. So you put it here. So delay was due to a fortuitous. Oh, the spelling is bad. Sorry. Fortuitous event. Fortuitous. What's the spelling? Oh no. Event. So forgive my rambling because I'm hungry. I haven't had lunch. Delay was due to a fortuitous event. Flight or airplane cannot take off due to bad weather. Then this cannot, plus they cannot travel to the normal route. Had to travel to a Russian route, which is more congested. See, equals congested. So, and they alleged in here just the snowball effect. This is, yep. It could not be held in bad faith because its personnel did their best to look. Blah blah blah. So they alleged that they gave the respondent and the other 25 passengers free hotel accommodation. They gave Andy on plus 25 passengers. Let's just put packs. Free accommodation. Andy on plus 25 passengers were booked the next day. Gave them free hotel accommodation. Only Andy on did not. What was the term? Let's see. was responded to do not be takers up and opted to stay friend. Only Andy opted to stay at friend's house. Okay, so this was their contention. Now we go to part of employees were rude, not helpful to find another booking that would let her travel on to Manila on that day. Only let her use the phone because she threatened to sue. What else? Yeah, she suffered medical condition, poor performance. Let's put it here. No, poor performance, suffered medical condition. Yep, and expenses. Yep, additional expenses. So let's now go to the Supreme Court decision, SC decision. General rule. Let's go to why. So it was established, right, that there was a flight and that she missed the flight, and so there is already a presumption that the airline was negligent. Because as a rule, I would say that when goods are lost or destroyed or deteriorated, or when carriage or carrier failed to transport passengers to their destination,